Good morning, brush monkeys. This week we are starting in on the Death Lord from Grenadier Miniatures, 1986 miniature, sculpted by Julie Guthrie. It's one of the big reasons I chose this one, because she does a lot of Reaper miniatures now, and she's one of my favorite sculptors. She does a fantastic job. If this guy looks a little familiar, it's because he's based on the Kurgan from the Highlander movie, 1985 Highlander. And this was part of Grenadier's personalities line, the first personalities line. Usually find it referred to as personalities 1 because there's like 3 of them. But I really like this sculpt. I was a big fan of the Highlander movie. I was glad that they came out with this figure because the Kurgan was always kind of one of my favorite villains, and he had such iconic armor with this kind of skull helmet he's got going on here, and his big sword that got taken apart in the movie. I'm going to try to paint his armor as close as possible to the way he was done in the movie. I've got some reference pics to go off of. It's kind of a unique color though, so it's kind of difficult to do. But one thing I want to talk about with this guy is the difference between miniatures back in the day and miniatures now. For one thing, this guy's metal, obviously, being a 1986 figure, but also the standard back then was 25 millimeter, and there wasn't such a thing as heroic scale back then. Now you've got heroic scale as kind of a way of justifying scale creep. So you have 25 millimeter, then you got 25 millimeter heroic scale, which is closer to 28 millimeter. And then you've got 28 millimeter miniatures, and then you've got 28 millimeter heroic scale, which is a little closer to almost 32 millimeters. And then you got 32 millimeter miniatures, which is kind of what Games Workshop has kind of crept up into. And then you've got 32 millimeter heroic scale, which is, I guess the heroic scale is supposed to represent, if the millimeter size is supposed to be a 6-foot person, then the heroic scale is supposed to represent somebody almost 7 feet tall, and that's really what the Kurgan should have been, but he's 25 millimeter. And if you look at him in comparison to, this is a Highland heroine from Reaper, and this is a modern sculpt. Put the two right next to each other, she is quite a bit bigger than him. She's supposed to be 28 millimeter, and she just dwarfs the poor little dude. He's supposed to be like almost 8 feet tall. He's this enormous dude. He was played by Clancy Brown in the movie, and now he's this little tiny figure. So I kind of feel bad for this guy being the victim of scale creep, but that happens. Apparently over time, miniatures have gotten bigger, and I feel like a part of that is because miniature painters that started out back in the day are getting older. But also, and more importantly, that the miniature sculptors are getting older, and I think your eyesight just isn't as great when you get old. And so you end up having to sculpt things on a bigger scale, and then that just kind of happens. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and try to paint this guy the way he is. Hopefully, there's not a whole lot of skin on the guy. It's pretty much just his face. So I'm hoping that the techniques and stuff that I've gotten used to now, and gotten used to painting Games Workshop figures and Reaper figures and that kind of thing, are still going to be able to translate to a relatively smaller scale. I'm going to do his face with Wraithbone. His face is really the only flesh on him. I'm going to do his face with Wraithbone and Guilliman flesh. His armor is going to be Leadbelcher with an Athonian Camoshade wash. This little hair thing on the back of his thing and the fur on his cloak are going to be Corvus Black. The cloak is going to be Eshin Gray. It's going to be lined in Incubi Darkness, so there'll be a little bit of color there. His boots are going to be Black Templar. His sword will be Basilicanum Gray with a silver dry brush. His armor will have a silver dry brush as well. Very light, because I want to maintain that kind of greenish brown color. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes here. The base is going to be Dark Angels green with Niblet green dry brush and dark green base band. So hopefully this will all come out pretty nicely. Oh, I got gold for his sword hilt and pommel. Well, you can't really see the pommel, but gold for the sword hilt and then flat black for the grip itself. So hopefully this will come out all right. All right, I'm going to shut it off now and get started on that, and I'll see you soon. Bye. All right, brush monkeys, we're back. As you can see, I've got the skin painted. I've got the armor based and the sword based. I just put the, you can see I just put a coat of the Basilicanum Gray on the sword, so it's still wet. I'm going to take a little break and let that dry, and same with the armor. He's looking pretty good so far. Not a great level of detail on it. The detail kind of drops off some places. Like you can see, I've left the I left his gloves black on both hands, and they'll probably be painted when I paint the sword hilt flat black. And there's some cloth on the back of his legs that's going to be flat black as well. These straps on here, I might go ahead and base those in Wraithbone and then do them in snakebite leather. I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet. These old Grenadier 25mm sculpts really don't have a whole lot of great detail on them. You don't get the level of detail in the face that you get from the modern sculpts. So he doesn't look terribly like Clancy Brown. You can tell mostly who he's supposed to be based on the armor. But I'm going to let that dry, and then when we come back, we'll wash his armor with the Athonian Camo Shade, and that'll kind of give it that sort of old greenish brown color that the armor had in the movie. And then we'll go from there. All right. So I will see you soon. Bye. All right, brush monkeys, I'm back, and I gotta say I'm both pleasantly surprised and a little pissed about this. I'm pleasantly surprised because the Athonian Camo Shade wash over the lead belcher gives that perfect kind of almost olive green, dirty metallic armor that he had in the movies. And the reason I'm a little pissed about that is because when I first got this figure, this figure's been painted before and then stripped, and now I'm repainting it. And when I painted it before, I spent a ridiculous amount of time mixing up the perfect shade for that armor, and because I was painting it before washes were a thing, so I was trying to get that color in a paint, and it took like a ridiculous long time, and I even debated about whether or not I really wanted to strip it and repaint it, because I just matched that color so perfectly. And to give you an idea of what I'm going for, here's the armor in the movie, and it's kind of hard to see from the Pinterest pictures how this armor looked in the movie, because it really does come across a lot more. Here's a shot of the actual production armor, and this makes it look a little more brownish, but come on, open up. See, that makes it look a little more brown. But it is kind of greenish, and it's hard to tell on this camera because, again, this camera kind of distorts the colors a little bit. But I spent so much time trying to get that perfect kind of greenish color to his armor that I didn't want to strip it, and now it's just, I'll paint it steel and wash it with Athonian Camo Shade, and boom, it's perfect. It kind of makes me a little mad. But yeah, it comes out pretty good. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the armor itself a light dry brush of Necron compound when it dries. But I think the helmet, because the helmet's supposed to be a skull, I might give it a very, very light dry brush of Tyrant Skull, just to make that look a little more like aged bone rather than the metal that the rest of it's supposed to be. But yeah, the armor is obviously still wet. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and we'll continue from there, right? So I will see you soon. Bye. Alright, we've made some more progress on our guy here. As you can see, I've got the, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. I got the helmet dry brushed with the tyrant skull. Come on. I don't know about you, but I hate this about YouTube videos. People zoom in and then they can't get it to focus. There you go. So I got the helmet dry brushed with the tyrant skull, and it looks pretty good. And then I got the armor dry brushed with a little bit of Necron compound, but it's still got that beautiful metallic green color, and it looks even more like the armor on the Pinterest page, like the armor on the movie. I think it's coming along pretty nicely. I'm going to go ahead and dry brush the sword next. Come on. So I've got the sword left to dry brush, and I've got, I went ahead and painted not only the boots, but the fabric in his, you can see I painted the pants and the fabric of his gloves. So you can see that on there too. And he's just looking really spiff. So I can do this on camera. Oh, that's way too spicy. Let's try that again. That was too much. I like to go right along the edge most of the time because that really gets that nice shiny steel color to it, but it also leaves these kind of scratchy bits along the sides. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Get those two prongs there. Yeah, the boy's looking pretty good here. Ease in on that zoom a little bit. There we go. Alright, he's looking pretty good so far. So I'm going to let the, obviously the contrast paint on his boots and pants here aren't quite dry. So I'm going to let that dry, and then when we come back, we'll do the hilt of his sword, and the grip of his sword, and the fur along his crest and along the top of his cloak here. And then we'll probably do his cloak too. So, probably going to do the inside of his cloak next, just because there's not a whole lot that needs to be done there. But yeah, going to take a little break and let those contrast paints dry, and then we'll come back and continue on with our Kurgan here. Right, see you soon. Bye. Alright, Brush Monkeys, I'm back, and I've made a lot more progress on our guy here. All of it in fairly small areas, with the exception of the cloak. But, as you can see, I got his sword grip painted, and you can kind of tell the difference between the black of the grip and the black of the Black Templar gloves. So there's that little detail in there. I've got his cloak lining painted in the Incubi Darkness. I've got his cloak painted with Eshin Gray, and that came out a lot darker, or a lot lighter than I meant it to. And so I shade washed that and the fur and the cloak liner and everything with Nuln Oil, and I gotta wait for that to dry now. His fur on both the horsehair crest on the top of his helm and the fur around his shoulders here was all done with the Corvus Black. And then, like I said, I shade washed it with Nuln Oil. I think that's going to help bring out that fur texture a little bit, and the Nuln Oil on the cloak is going to help bring out the folds of the cloak a little bit more. When it's dry, I'm going to go back over it with the Eshin Gray and kind of layer that up a little bit so it's only really that dark in the shadows and the folds of it. But overall, I'd say I'm nailing this guy. He looks really good. I've still got the gold of his sword hilt to do, and it turns out you can actually see his pommel. It's right there. I just kind of painted over it, so you can see it if I move in. So I'm going to paint those with the Balthazar gold and then the Vallejo old gold. Even though I think in the movie it was steel or black, but I want it to be gold, so I'm going to paint it gold. And then his base is all that's left to do, but he's coming along really well. I'm really happy with how that armor turned out. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here, let that null oil dry, and then when we come back, we'll layer up the cloak and paint the hilt and pommel. Alright, see you soon. Bye. Alright, we have made some more progress on our guy here. As you can see, I've got the golds of his sword hilt and pommel based. They look pretty good. I also went through, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but I went and did all the straps on his leg armor here, and on the other side. And there's one under there, but you can't quite see it because of the light. See there, you can kind of see it. It's right there. Went over all those with wraithbone and then painted them with snakebite leather. So it's still really dark, but it gives that nice leathery look to it, and it picks them out really nicely. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then as you can see, I did the cloak with Eschen Gray. Using Eschen Gray as a highlight on itself after you tone it down with the null oil makes it much more of a highlight, and it's not quite such a stark, bright gray as it came out the first time. I think it looks really fantastic. I think this guy is really looking good. I just have to do the old gold on the hilt and pommel, and then I'll be ready to base him. So he's coming along really, really nicely, and I'm pretty happy with him. So I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, I will finish up the golds, and then the next time you see this guy, he's going to be done. Alright, see you soon. Bye. Alright, one last update before we wrap this guy up. As you can see, I've got the golds done, and it looks pretty spiffy. Nice bright gold, and I've got the base painted with the contrast paint. When this dries, I'll go over it with the dry brush of Niblet Green, and then I'll paint that base band with a nice dark green. So the next time you see this guy, he's going to be completely done, and he's looking pretty spiff. I really like how he's coming out. Look at that armor. I'm just really, really stunned with how that came out. Alright, so yeah, like I said, I'm going to take a break and let that contrast dry, and then when we come back, we'll finish him up. Next time you see this guy, he's going to be done. Alright, see you soon. Bye. Alright, brush monkeys, there he is, our finished Kurgan, or Death Lord, from Grenadier's 1986 Personalities line, sculpted by Julie Guthrie. And he is looking really fantastic. I'm kind of amazed at how well he came out, considering as small as he is and some of the lack of detail on him. I'm pretty impressed with how he came out. I really, really like how this dude finished up. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Hey Brush Monkeys, Tom from Flying Monkey Studios here. If you like what you see, click like down below. If you want to be notified when new videos come out, click subscribe. And in the meantime, if you want to see how to add one of the miniatures that we've painted on this channel to your own collection, check out our Instagram, Tumblr, and Patreon sites. If you want to support us in doing what we do, check out my Patreon site, check out my merch store at storefrontier.com/flymonkeystudios. You can get t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, all kinds of stuff there. Go check that out. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.